The game that was long thought dead now rises from beyond the grave. Let's talk about the mysterious return of Cursed City. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I just felt like talking about the strange tale of Cursed City once more. The game that Games Workshop promoted so heavily, dropped so abruptly, and now it seems it's returning once more. In a recent Warhammer community post a few days back, it seems that Cursed City is going to be returning in 2022, and not only that, but that article kind of points to it being a more permanent return rather than a limited run, one with multiple expansion packs to follow. Now I usually talk about 40k things on the channel, but I must admit Cursed City really quite interested me just for the weirdness that went along with its release. As they were promoting it in early 2021, it basically sounded like a fantasy mirror of the Blackstone Fortress game. A big boxed game with a whole bunch of really detailed heroes from a number of different races, pitted against a whole load of generic bad guys, including a couple of big bosses, and all of the miniatures just really being very, very nicely designed. Some of the better ones that Games Workshop has released in recent years, in my opinion. It was kind of clear that all the way up to the launch, Games Workshop had invested in this really quite heavily. They made an entire website for the game, every character was remarkably fleshed out with backstory. There are official videos saying how you played it, and they made the effort to send out the game to a whole load of content creators to try and help it catch on. Not myself, of course, that sort of thing is for other channels with cameras and things. Then, after building up hype for quite so long, as soon as the launch came, they sold out their entire stock in minutes, and as soon as their stock had gone, Games Workshop just basically went radio silence on Cursed City, zero promotion on Warhammer Community, removed the game from their web store altogether, and their social media channels were incredibly tight-lipped as to what was going on. The only eventual confirmations that we got were that it was a limited run and wouldn't be coming back in the foreseeable future. It quite annoyed a whole ton of people who had been looking forward to the game, maybe the support and expansions that it seemed to promise from the materials within it, or perhaps just people who wanted to play it in the first place and couldn't afford the prices that it was being scalped for. Not only that, but shortly after there was really quite a weird Vampires release for Age of Sigmar. Rather than feeling like an army expansion, this looked a lot more like it was just a whole bunch of character miniatures, and a lot of special characters at that. Just from looking at the releases, I was pretty certain that these were the miniatures that were destined to be in the expansions of Cursed City. They seemed like they would have been right at home as bosses to hunt for the adventurers, and instead of getting a Cursed City release, instead they just got a generic Age of Sigmar one, presumably so Games Workshop could still use the effort that they'd invested into the miniatures. In particular, the one that was the most telling out of any of them was this reimagined form of Radikar the Vampire. In the base game, he's the main bad guy known as Radikar the Wolf. Presumably, if you achieve your quest within the Cursed City, he gets banished and exiled to the wilderness, and then I strongly believe that maybe in the last expansion planned for Cursed City, he might return as this Radikar the Beast model, perhaps to bring a fresh challenge to the adventurers to try and defeat their original boss, but vastly levelled up. It would certainly feel like a really fitting end narratively to the story. As if it follows the Blackstone Fortress pattern, then it would have a limited number of expansions, probably planned in advance. I'm certainly not saying that that's confirmed yet, but it just seems highly plausible to me. It just seems a bit weird to me that Games Workshop will release the same miniature at two different points in time, without trying to feed it into a greater story within the same game. In any case, expansions and releases aside, it really is a subject of much speculation as to why Cursed City had to go away in the first place. Perhaps most annoyingly because Games Workshop chose not to say whatsoever. Not only did they not give any explanation for why they had to pull it, but they basically refused to acknowledge the fact that their arm had been forced on it. Even if they'd just said something along the lines of factors beyond our control have stopped us from releasing Cursed City as intended, but when they don't even say something like that, it kind of makes it look like Games Workshop are trying to say that things were all going to plan just as they intended, which doesn't look good when you've massively built up the hype for a game and then let down a whole bunch of people who then can't even buy it. So far, I've not really seen anything too convincing as to any one clear cause of why Cursed City went away. It seems that fan speculation is all there is to go on. Perhaps some of the most interesting theories that I've seen is that there could have been some sort of IP issue with the box, perhaps copying tropes or ideas from another game that might have got involved and stopped production, so they might have had to change it slightly before it comes back. It might have been simple as component shortages, perhaps not enough cardboard or material to make the packaging. Everything certainly has been massively disrupted by the pandemic, and perhaps they were in a situation where they simply couldn't make enough boxes to satisfy demand and decided that the whole project just wasn't worth promoting anymore if they couldn't sell it. I guess maybe in terms of supporting materials it is a bit more complicated than some of their other box products. Most of the time all they just need is a box and the miniatures within, but this has quite a lot of other bits like a game board and things. There could have been some sort of dispute with how it's manufactured, maybe Games Workshop and one of their contractors getting into an argument about exactly what they'd signed and agreed. Or perhaps there could be some sort of issue with where parts of the box were manufactured. The release was quite soon after the UK's Brexit date, and maybe in some way Curse City was a composite product made in a couple of different countries, and it just made it non-economically viable. Those are just a few theories that I've seen discussed. I'm certainly not an expert on any of those areas, and unless Games Workshop makes some sort of statement, there's a good chance that we'll just never know. Whatever it was though, it certainly seems that it wasn't just a Games Workshop choice. Generally they do quite like selling maximum amounts of things that are popular. I'm sure whatever stage in their supply chain that stopped Curse City from being sold in full was probably in hot water. Compared with a lot of their other products, they had sunk a whole load of marketing and consumer hype into it. Being forced to pull the plug lost them a lot of sales and quite a lot of goodwill from customers too. That's kind of reinforced by the fact that it is coming back. They didn't just choose to drop the line when they certainly could have after this big hiatus, and it seems that whatever issue did cause Curse City to get shut down now is fixed. So that brings us to now, where apparently Curse City will be re-released in 2022. Warhammer community perhaps gave the slightly tongue-in-cheek statement that said this set sold out quickly when it was released, and many of you have been in touch to ask if it will be back. Today we can confirm that it will indeed rise again. From their article they said that it's billed for sometime in 2022, and they'll tell us the exact release date sometime in the new year. As I mentioned earlier, they said that expansions will be following the main release of the game, so to me that highly implies that it's probably not a limited run if they're going to be continuing to support it after. I'm going to guess that it's going to be similar to the Blackstone Fortress deal, the main game sticking around for a good couple of years at least, while they release a few small supplements for it with different campaigns and quests. I would guess that it's just going to be the same vampire models that have already been released coming back with Curse City rules, but who knows if they might try to do something different, and they might be packaged alongside some other new ones perhaps. In any case, if you are looking to pick up Curse City, it was £125 or $199 last time, though of course it does kind of remain to be seen whether or not Games Workshop will decide to increase the price for the year or so that's gone on since. That would certainly cause a fair amount of eye-rolling, but perhaps wouldn't be a massive anomaly on Games Workshop's part. So as always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you, like me, also know nothing about international trade law, but you think that you've got a good guess, I look forward to the rampant speculation. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Ausbet's Tactics. I do generally focus on Warhammer 40k things, where I'll certainly keep up with Games Workshop's releases for that, and occasionally I'll delve into some other topics that interest me. Finally, if you've been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention one way in which you can help support, which is the Ausbet's Tactics Patreon page down in the video description below. Making all these videos does take a fair amount of time, and if you are enjoying regularly, then any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.